Sometimes a team is a team when they move house so many times it hurts. I mean, when you look at teams like the Atlanta Hawks in the NBA who moved from Tri Cities in the Illinois region to St. Louis to Atlanta, baseball, you have the triple move of the A's franchise from Philly to Kansas City to Oakland, well, to Sacramento. And then for football, the best example of a triple move is not really, you can't really have a triple move is the Raiders moving from Oakland to LA back to Oakland and then to Las Vegas. But what if I told you about a team that was doomed and played in a city that was doomed by Midwestern hockey and then went to the mountains and didn't do well. And then once they got to the swamp, they got better. IE. Old reference to a commercial. Anyway, this is the story of the 1994 New Jersey Devils. Hello out there, we're on the air. It's Cutter with NHL time. Tensions blow, the whistle blown, and the pucks go down the ice. Some teams just want to win the cup and do it with a smile. Hey, that is cool. Up on the River Nile. Oh, the good old hockey game. Who will come out on top? Will a team get through the cup by any means necessary? Oh, the good old hockey game. It's the best game you can name. And I'm have no shame. I will simulate those hockey games. Woo! So the New Jersey Devils started off life not in New Jersey, but in Kansas City. It was the result of the NHL deciding to expand in the mid 70s. After the 12 teams came out in 1967, thanks to the Great Expansion, in 1970 they decided to expand to Buffalo and Vancouver, two teams who were pissed off that they didn't get the 67 spots. And then in 1972 they decided to do a double expansion again to make it 16 teams to Atlanta and Long Island. Long Island was hoping for a WHA team, but the NHL says, "Too bad, we're putting an NHL team in Long Island," and they moved the WHA team to New York, but then went to New Jersey and Atlanta, putting hockey in the Deep South. Not really the best idea, but what could you do? And then in 1974, they decided to do another expansion. They would add two new teams, one in the nation's capital, not our nation's capital, but the American nation's capital of Washington, and also in Kansas City, who had a great minor league hockey affiliation. But Kansas City in the Midwest, you really don't think that way about Kansas City and all that. Sure, like the Royals were expansion team in 1969 and used to have the A's in the 50s and 60s. And basketball at one time was in Kansas City and Omaha before they moved to Sacramento. And then for football, it was the Kansas City Chiefs, an AFL team turned into an NFL team. But yeah, hockey was weird in Kansas City. It's where Wilf Paymon, Simone Nole, and a few other players were big. What got me was Kansas City's logo. And at first, I thought it was a two-headed dog or something, a two-headed animal. But no, it was a rider and a horse. There's a thing in the park. Unfortunately, Kansas City could only last 2 years, and then they decided to move to the West, as Denver was supposed to get an NHL expansion team alongside Seattle. But that turned out to be terrible. And that did not happen, mostly because the Kansas City people wanted to move to Denver. So Colorado was going to get a hockey team, an NHL team called the Colorado Rockies. They were the Rockies before the baseball team were the Rockies. Anyway, the version of the Colorado Rockies were not really that great. They had a few good seasons, made the playoffs, but they were full of holes. Swiss cheese. And Hardy Astrom was supposed to be this hot crap goalie who was flunked from the New York Rangers. But in Colorado, he just couldn't stop pucks. And Don Cherry, who became coach in Colorado mostly because of a word of honor thing, and turned down a Leafs contract to be coach and GM, leading the Leafs to get Punch Imlach, who basically was trying to set the team back to the 1960s in the 1980s. Fucker. So anyway, yeah. Anyway, so the fact of the matter is that, that's what I have to do. And Don Cherry just wasn't meant to be. One year he had troubles with ownership who refused to get him a better goalie and all that. Colorado would plod along for a few years and then went to New Jersey when John McMullen bought the team and moved the team to New Jersey. Well, rumors were certain that the Colorado owner, Imperator, wanted to move the team to New Jersey, but couldn't. But yeah, they went to New Jersey. They went to the swamp. They were named the Devils for the mythical New Jersey Devil. And they plodded along for like 5, 6 years until 1988. On the final day of the season, they had to beat Chicago by any stretch. And John McClain scored a big goal with like a minute left in overtime, got the Devils to the playoffs, and somehow, in some way, they ended up going to the conference finals against Boston, losing in Game 7. So that would have been big. You'd be thinking, well, what if the 1988 Devils made the finals? Yeah, but there's another team that's much better than them. But the fact of the matter is that the Devils continued to be okay. In the 90s, they just kept getting knocked out in the first round until 1994. And then in 95, lo and behold, they won the Stanley Cup using their trap defense that Chuck Lemaire set up. They trapped everyone in their path. They even won 10 road games, not home games, road games. They went into Boston and won games. They went into Philadelphia to win games. They went into crap. I can't remember. I would say Washington, but I'm not right. But nevertheless, I think, yeah, they had some great times on the road. They would win the cup in 2000 thanks to Jason Arnott's fantastic double overtime winner in Game 6. Larry Robinson, Kitchener, former Kitchener Ranger, coaching the team and putting Eric Landros out of commission. And then in 2003, when Martin Brodeur was just untouchable on home ice, like you could barely put a puck past him in the Stanley Cup Finals at home. And then you got yourself like some great runs, including 2012 when they got to the final, but unfortunately they fell short to the LA Kings, the 8 seed LA Kings at that. I had no problems picking LA to win the Stanley Cup that year. Kind of hate New Jersey. It's kind of the New York Ranger in me in a sense to hate on the Devils because after all, they took out the Rangers in Game 7 in 2023, which would have been huge. If the Rangers had won that series, that would have been the first time the Leafs and Rangers by two NHL teams would have been in the second round together in nearly 3 decades. So anyway, the Devils have had some troubles this year. The playoffs, they've had too much injuries, and Carolina took them to the cleaners. So anyway, let's talk about the 1984 New Jersey Devils. So the 94 Devils season, this was the 20th season for the franchise that started in Kansas City and the 12th since the relocation from Colorado. They made the playoffs for the fourth straight year, hoping this time to get out of the first round. 91, they had the Penguins on the ropes, up 3-2, but lost Game 7 thanks to Frank Pietrangelo, who was an injury replacement for Tom Barrasso, making that nice save on Peter Stastny. The Devils went to Game 7 in the first round. In 92, lost to the Rangers in New York. And in 93, the Penguins rolled them over. So the Devils started off confidently with 7 straight wins. Their goaltending rocked when Martin Brodeur finally was given the reins to the crease instead of Chris Terreri. And it worked out quite well. They had team records of 47 wins and 106 points. Scott Stevens led the league with a plus 53. And it must be said, Kitchener! That's right, Scott Stevens, former Kitchener Ranger. So the Rangers won the Atlantic Division. The Devils had 106 points. This was the first year that teams could go from 1 to 8. Washington was number 7. The Islanders were number 8, just nipping out the Florida Panthers, the expansion Florida Panthers at that, by 1 freaking point. Pittsburgh would have been third under normal circumstances, but because the rules were the division winners had to be 1-2, Pittsburgh got the 2 seed and faced Washington. Otherwise, the Devils would have faced Washington. Probably would have crushed them. Penguins, Buffalo, that would have been interesting. I think Buffalo might have pulled the upset. But Washington did upset Pittsburgh. But still, yeah, Pittsburgh would have been right for the picking. So, yeah, that's what happened. Boston, Montreal, Buffalo. there. In the playoffs, the Devils would play the Sabres in one of the most highly anticipated goaltending duels, as Marty Brodeur would try to prove he was good as a rookie. Well, he won the Calder Trophy for Rookie of the Year, but he also would face a goalie that people didn't think would be the starting goalie in Buffalo. That was Dominik Hasek. Grant Fuhrer had suffered injuries, and Hasek took the crease and never let go of the Buffalo crease for many years. It was a nip and tuck affair at the old Buffalo Auditorium, Game 6, in which the Devils had a chance to take care of Buffalo and failed. Dave Hannon scored in quadruple overtime to win Game 6 and then go to Game 7, in which the Devils won 2-1. So 3 times they had to beat the Sabres 2-1. Then against the Bruins, they were down 2-0 to the Boston Bruins, which was shocking. But, Boston was an established team. And that was in New Jersey. Those 2 losses were at home, not on the road. They went to the Boston Garden and took care of the Bruins twice, including one in overtime. And then they won games 5 and 6. And then against the Rangers in one of the tightest conference finals of all time. They won in double overtime in game 1. I can't remember who it was. But they got shut down by the Rangers in game 2. Game 3, they lost in double overtime thanks to Stefan Matteau. Not the first time he would win double hearts. Game 4 and 5, they won by a combined score of 7-2. So it looked like the Rangers were going to choke. But Mark Messier put the team on his back with a hat trick in the third period to win the game 4-2. Send it to game 7 at the Garden. Rangers up 1-0, but Selapukin with 7 seconds left tied the game, and then double overtime. Matteau went for a pass for a swooping shot, and it hit Fetisov's skate and into the net. Matteau, and the Rangers have one more hill to climb, baby. You can't blame the Devils for being pissed off about their performance. They thought they were doing so well. Yeah, but double overtime just killed them. Yeah, Brodeur only played 47 games. That was weird. I thought he played more than that. Terrera played 44, so it was a goalie tandem. Oh, Terrera was 3-0? Really? I didn't know Terrera played in the playoffs and was 3-0. Brodeur was only 8-9. Huh. You learn something new every day. Brodeur won the Calder for Rookie of the Year. Jacques Lemaire was the Jack Adams winner for Coach of the Year. And Scott Stevens almost won the Norris for defenseman. Yeah, the Devils didn't have a fourth round pick. They traded that to Ottawa alongside Craig Billings and Troy Miller for Peter Sidorkiewicz. They drafted Jay Pandolfo in the second round from Boston University. Brandon Morrison, second round from the BC Junior League, which was amazing that Brandon Morrison would be drafted by the NHL team. He would do better with the Canucks. They drafted this guy from Poland by the name of Krzysztof Olewa. And they drafted Mike Legg, 11th round, 273rd overall, back when the draft was 11 rounds instead of 7. And casual fans will know who Mike Legg is, I hope. He of the Michigan goal. That's the guy who scored the goal, playing for the University of Michigan against Minnesota. He skated behind the net, and then he took the puck onto his stick. He did the lacrosse. That Mike Legg is the guy why we have a play called the Michigan. So anyway, that's what I gotta say about that. Now let's talk about what if the Devils did make the finals in 1994 and had to face those Canucks. So this is what happens. You got the Vancouver Canucks and the New Jersey Devils. Of course, in what ifs, the rule is you leave the other conference alone and let them play it out like in real life. So the Canucks would have been the Western champions anyway, and the Devils are the Eastern champions. So what would happen to Martin Brodeur? Took on Kirk McLean, both goalies with unbelievable runs. I mean, Brodeur being a rookie and on fire, and Kirk McLean, the last true stand-up goalie in NHL history. He didn't really go down on the ice too much. But yeah, Kirk McLean making that pad stop off Reichel against Calgary in Game 7 comes to mind. Anyway, Game 1 would have went to the Devil Dogs, 6-3. Canucks scored twice in the first. Bure and Gino Ojic Gio Ojek, really? Devils goes by Stefan Richer, John McClain, and Bruce Driver. Maybe you can drive my car. Devils would score with Bertie Nichols to make it 4-2. Scott Stevens, Kitchener, would score from Richer, and Kirk McLean was replaced by Kay Whitmore. It was funny how Vancouver, before the expansion draft of Florida and Anaheim drafting, put more emphasis on Kay Whitmore than um, the backup. Troy Gamble? I can't remember. Well, they traded, John Van Beesbrook. Didn't matter. They wanted to protect Kay Whitmore. John McClain made it 6-2. Mike Pluso got ejected for elbowing. Ben Hankinson had to come in to serve the penalty. Canucks scored an goal by Dane Jackson. I feel like Dane Jackson was a linesman. Dave Babbage and Martin Chelina. Yes, that Martin Chelina with only 3 minutes of play. Neil Eisenhunt get 10 minutes. Eisenhunt. Brandon McKay only got 23 seconds. Ben Hankinson got 22 seconds. And young Jason Smith, 3 minutes. Whitmore did fine in the nets. Eisenhunt got hurt thanks to Peluso. McLean, Driver, and Shorsky are your 3 stars of the game. Game 2. Let's see more of the same. The Devils up 5-3. 2 goals by the Devils, Driver, and Richer Ojek for Vancouver. Trevor Linden made it 2-2. Holig made it 3-2. Selapuka made it 4-2. And then Richer scored, and then Dane Jackson. I guess it was Dave Jackson, who was sent landsman, 5-3. Jim Dowd got hurt. Richer, McLean, and Linden were your 3 stars. Well, McLean had to handle 65 shots, which is unusual. I mean, the Devils put up those many shots in one game. That doesn't seem right. So anyway, Devils Canucks in game 3. Would see the Devils win the game 5-2 as Stevens and Richer scored for the Devils. Then Richer scored 2 more goals to start the second period, getting a natural hat trick. Stevens would score to make it 5-0, and then McLean was replaced. Mike Peluso got ejected for knee. Hankinson had to serve the penalty. Cliff Ronning scored, and then Trevor Linden scored. The Devils gave up 6 penalties and gave up only 1 goal on the power play. Kay Whitmore was on fire. Stevens, Richer, and Dowd, your 3 stars, and Whitmore would start game 4. Canucks were like, well, we have nothing to lose. Well, my friends, they lost it. The Devils win 4-0, and Vancouver's like, how the hell did we get blasted? Stevens, Richer, and Richer. So Richer got not 1, but 2 consecutive hat tricks in Vancouver. So yeah, Stefan Richer was a big move by the Devils to pick him up in 91, but Richer gives them something to think about, and Brodeur gets the shutout. That's the Canucks just couldn't do anything about it. Shots on target were 35-28. Jim Dowd got hurt again. Richer, Brodeur, and Stevens, your 3 stars of the game, and Martin Brodeur proving that he belonged, and the Canucks just couldn't believe it. How the heck could they not do it? Well, I think Kirk McLean would have been blown out of the water. But yeah, the Devils look hotter than a pistol, if you can coin the phrase. But yeah, the Devils would have swept the Vancouver Canucks aside and easily won the Stanley Cup. I don't know why it took 7 games for the Rangers to do it in this necessary thing. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond to do.